Hello, my name is Kerwin Pittman. As somebody who once sat in your shoes, I understand the importance of advocating for yourself. I want to say congratulations for making it to this point and even looking at this material. The students at Blanchard Community Law Clinic at Campbell Law wanted to provide you with some materials and tools that could best help you advocate for yourself. Please take the time to read these tools, study these tools, and utilize them, most importantly. Also, remember to stay infraction free, because I know how easy it is to get in trouble, but how hard it is to get out of it.
Congratulations on being eligible for parole consideration. We are Campbell Law students working with the Blanchard Community Law Clinic, and we wanted to make this video to help you and your family with some concrete ideas to help you be better prepared to put together a strong and successful parole application and present yourself well at your parole hearing. Let's get started. First, let's talk about what the law says. Chapter 15A of the North Carolina Code provides information about parole and describes what information the Parole Commission may consider. The Parole Commission must consider any information provided by the immediate family members of any victims, district attorneys, and law enforcement in the county where the crime was committed. It is really helpful to your case if any of these groups support you getting paroled. However, even if they don't, the Parole Commission may take into consideration information provided by people who do support you. Additionally, they may take into consideration your reentry plan and your interview. These are critical pieces of your parole application and the pieces we will be talking about today. First, we'll talk about building your reentry plan. Next, we'll talk about getting letters of support to illustrate your reentry plan. And finally, we will discuss skills you can use in your interview and what to do when it has ended. A big part of a successful parole hearing is having a reentry plan. A reentry plan explains to the Parole Commission where you'll be living after you're released, who will you be living with, what you will be doing, and when these arrangements would be able to take effect. Because the reentry plan is something in your control, you need to spend a lot of time on it and discuss it with your family, friends, case manager, and therapist if you have one. Write it out and have them read it over. When creating a reentry plan, remember that the parole board wants to know the where, who, what, when, and why. Let's break down each one. Where? In this section, the Parole Commission wants to see that you have a good housing situation and ideally that you have a backup plan as well. The questions you should address in this section are: where will you be staying? A house, an apartment? Why do you want to live there? In choosing where to live upon release, you can take into consideration what the Parole Commission might be looking for. The Commission will ideally want to see that the living space fits 3 other criteria. 1, the space is outside of the city where the crime took place. 2, the space is not in the same city as the victim or the victim's family. And 3, the space is not near anyone who will be a negative influence. If you're going to be registered as a sex offender when you are released, you will also need to make sure that the house you are living in is not within 1,000 feet of a daycare or school. A friend, family member, or case manager can help you find places that might work well for you. Once you have determined where you will live, you will need to have the family member, friend, or organization write a letter of support stating you can stay there. The letter does not need to be too detailed, but it needs to include things like: 1, a description of the living space and the neighborhood, including whether you will have your own bedroom, internet activity, if the area is low crime, proximity to transportation, and the absence of drugs and alcohol. 2, who lives in the space, and a little bit about them so that the parole board will be assured that it is safe, drug-free, and weapon-free. Remember, you will likely be on post-release for some time, and there are rules about drugs, guns in the house where you will live. Number 3, how the person writing the letter knows you. For example, Part 1 may read, "I am writing to confirm that your name will be staying in my home upon his or her immediate release. Your name will stay in the bedroom located on the first floor. This room has access to a bathroom and a kitchen," Our home has an active Wi-Fi network that can be used for education and/or work. Our home is located in a low-crime area, across from a bus stop, and is within walking distance from downtown. We are a drug and alcohol-free home. If you are able to attach a picture of the house or apartment where you will live, that would also be helpful. Part 2 could read, I am the only current occupant of this home. I work at X job. I have lived here for 5 years. And finally, part 3 could read, I have known your name for however many years, and I am confident that this living situation will work for the agreed upon period. Please let me know if any additional information is needed. That is all the letter needs to say. Include this letter in your parole application and remember the information for your parole hearing. Who? In this section, the Parole Commission wants to know who your support network will be. Questions you should address in this section are, who will you live with if parole is granted? Who will be supporting you? Who will hold you accountable? And who will ensure that you will be successful? Sometimes this list includes family members, but if family members are not available, then your list can include organizations or friends that can provide you with support. The parole board wants to know you will be released into a community that cares for you and will give you the best opportunity to succeed. Create a list of contacts, including individuals and organizations who will serve as your support network after release. Be sure to include the names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses of these individuals or organizations if you can. People who should be on this list include your family members, friends, mentors, church leaders, and any other community organizations you have been involved with or plan to be involved with. Be sure everyone on your list is a positive influence for the board to consider. For example, if you think one of your references may be doing something illegal, do not include that reference and do not rely on them for support. It's better to have a short list of quality references than a long list of potentially problematic references. Plus, once you are released from prison, you will be on post-release supervision for some time, and you will be putting your freedom in jeopardy if you're living around others breaking the law. After you obtain a reference list, the next step is to have your references write letters of support. Support letters should illustrate these things. 1, how the writer knows you. 2, what the writer thinks about you, highlighting your positive character traits. 3, how the writer has remained in contact with you since you have been in prison. And 4, how they will continue to be part of your network when you are on parole and how they will aid you in your success. For example, a friend from high school could say, I met your name in our 10th grade biology class at XYZ High School. We instantly became best friends because he also liked the Atlanta Braves. Your name was always the leader of our groups in class because he could figure out the problem faster than anyone else. He was also a good friend because I knew if I needed him, he would be there for me. I have kept in contact with your name for years now. I hope your name gets out so we can get to know each other better as adults. I will assist him in any way possible. It's not uncommon for some people to have none or very few people to put on this list. If that's the case, just be able to explain to the parole board how you plan to get involved with the community upon your release. For example, due to the long amount of time I have spent in prison, I do not know many people outside of prison who would be able to serve as a reference. However, upon my release, I plan to immediately get involved with Church A because religion has helped me through prison and has become an important part of my life. I believe that getting involved with the church will put me with positive people who will influence me to keep improving. What? In this section, the Parole Commission wants to see what plans you have for employment and free time upon release. Questions you need to address in this section are, what will you be doing on parole? Is there somewhere you can work? Do you have a job lined up? What type of hobbies will you have? What type of community involvement will you take part in? What resources do you have available? Do you have a doctor's office that can take you as a patient for medical or mental health care? Although it may be tough to get employment while in prison, there are employers who are willing to help and programs you can participate in to increase your chances. Taking classes in the field you are interested in is by far the best way to impress employers and make connections. Your case manager can probably help you connect with organizations that help people with employment upon their release. When you receive a preliminary offer of employment, you need to have the employer write a letter of support stating 1. The employer offers you employment, 2. A brief description of the job you'll be doing, and 3. The offer remains open until after you are released. The Parole Commission might want to see you participate in case-specific reentry programs. It's good to go ahead and identify the ones that might be right for you. This shows self-awareness and responsibility. If you have family or friends who want to help you, there are helpful reentry organizations that can be found by searching reentry services in your county name and then clicking the link from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. Here, the organizations are broken down into the following categories: behavior, education, employability, family, financial, housing, life skills, mental health, physical and medical help, sobriety, and transportation. Also, if you have any medical or mental health care you need to continue outside of prison, it is helpful to identify a provider's office that is willing to take you as a patient. Reach out to any of these programs or offices that you are interested in and have them write a letter of support acknowledging that they would be able to help you once released. When? In this section, the Parole Commission wants to see not only do you have work, hobbies, family, and community support, but also that you have them immediately. This can be difficult until you have an exact date on which you will be released. However, make sure your letters of support emphasize your housing and employment would be available immediately after release. Why? In this section, the Parole Commission wants to know why this plan makes sense. Discuss how your experiences in prison has helped you develop this plan, how you have been able to successfully communicate with all of the parties involved, and why these are the people and activities you chose. Over-explain instead of under-explain. For example, if you have a job upon being paroled, explain why that job is good for you, your personal skills, and your limitations. Explain why you will succeed in that job role, such as having reliable transportation, having skills in that trade, or having a mentor at that job. These explanations answer the biggest question: why will you be successful living outside of prison? Once you have completed each section, write out your plan, gather all your letters of support, and put them into your parole application. It's crucial to touch every aspect of the who, what, when, where, and why of your reentry plan. Doing this will help you be in the best position to receive parole. In addition to letters of support from other people, it can also be helpful for you to write your own letter to the Parole Commission. It should point out the good parts about you and your prison record, especially things that might not be in the state's records. Since the Parole Board has access to all the information about you, both good and bad, it's important to address the bad things in your letter to the board and in your interview. Be able to explain disciplinary charges or other problems you may have had in prison. For example, if you're asked about an infraction while in prison, you should take responsibility for that infraction, but it is also a good idea to explain whatever may have been going on at that time, like if you were part of a gang but no longer part of that gang, or maybe the infraction is several years old and you were just young at the time, but have since learned why it was wrong. Before the parole hearing, the board will review your case file. The case file will contain everything. The case file will contain anything you submitted to the Parole Commission, as well as your official state criminal record, prison disciplinary record, record of programs, letters of support, and any other information the state may have about you.
Now that you've done your research, developed a reentry plan, gathered letters of support, and submitted everything, it's time for the parole hearing. You will be interviewed by the Parole Commission at what is called the hearing. The interview allows the parole board to ask any questions they may have about your case file or your reentry plan. This may be nerve-wracking, but it's important to be confident, but remain humble. In this section of the video, we're going to give you some talking points that you should mention during the interview and highlight some interviewing skills that will help you best advocate for yourself. When you begin the interview, introduce yourself, including your name, where you're from, how old you are, and how long you've been incarcerated. For example, that may look like, "Hello, my name is," insert your name, "and I would like to thank the parole board for allowing me this opportunity to tell you about myself. I am from," insert where you're from, "and I've been incarcerated for," insert however many years you've been incarcerated. Next, take responsibility for your actions, both the crime and any disciplinary charges you received while in prison. Acknowledge your wrongful actions, the impact your actions have had on others, and the consequences of your actions. Because there will be a separate meeting that allows for any victims to speak to the board if they so choose, it's important to acknowledge the impact that your actions had on people who were hurt when you committed the crime and to be respectful of them. The parole board's job is to determine if recidivism is likely. In other words, you need to convince them that you will not reoffend. It's your job to tell them about your positive traits that demonstrate why no more crime will be committed after your release. Understand that for some crimes, there are programs you really need to be a part of, like for sex offenders, the SOAR program, and if your crime or infraction involved drug or alcohol, Narcotics Anonymous and Alcohol Anonymous can be especially helpful. Your case manager might have other ideas about what kinds of programs or classes, based on your disciplinary history, you should take part in. Tell the commission how you have grown and how you have had therapy or classes in prison that have helped you come to this understanding. Next, the Parole Commission may ask you some questions. The Juvenile Parole Project created a list of 20 questions you are likely to be asked based on questions the parole board often does ask. So it's best to go ahead and think about your answers to these questions because you will likely see a few of them during your hearing. So here are those 20 questions. Why should we give you parole? Do you feel remorse? What guarantees do we get that you won't reoffend? Why are you in prison? What led you to commit this crime? What support systems do you have in the community? What makes you think you can cope in the community? Where do you plan to live? What will you do if you're not allowed to go back to your hometown? Can you explain your disciplinary infractions? What programs have you taken? How did these programs benefit you? How do you apply what you learned in those programs? Did you learn anything about yourself by being in an institution? Do you consider yourself to be a criminal? How do you think your victim feels about your offense? What have you done to address any incomplete items in your case management plan? What should you do if the same situation were to occur again? Have you addressed the issue or issues that caused you to offend? And lastly, do you think the sentence you received fits your crime? Now you will notice two things about these questions. First, many of the questions are phrased negatively or harshly. Don't let that bother you. Instead, be honest, positive, and try to end each answer with a positive fact. For example, if asked, "Do you consider yourself a criminal?" An incorrect response may look something like just saying no, or somehow shifting blame onto other people. Rather, the best method is to take accountability. Then spin the question into your favor. So a better response would look like, "Because of the bad choices I made when I was 15 years old, yes, I would be a criminal. But I have worked every day since my bad choice to become something better. I have taken all these classes, I've remained infraction-free for 2 years, and I was involved in this mentorship program. While I cannot change the bad choices I made, I can try to create as much positivity around me as possible. If I'm released, I will be able to do just that by volunteering in this mentorship program, where I can share my story with other people who are at risk of making the same mistakes that I made." Now, the second thing you will notice about these questions is that if you followed this video so far and created a strong reentry plan, then almost all of these questions should already be answered. But in the case you don't get questions, talk about the topics contained in these questions, as well as any other positive traits you have had and the goals upon release. In explaining your goals to the board, be sure your goals are well thought out and attainable. The first step in creating an attainable goal is to write down what it means to you to be successful after release. Everyone has different motivating factors, and it's important to talk about this when speaking to the board. Next, To show why your goals are attainable, write the steps needed to reach that goal and what barriers you anticipate. Make sure these steps are small, so you can make steady progress each and every day. Lastly, include dates you would like to achieve things by. These could look like first week, first month, or maybe even the first year. Try to do that if possible. The board wants to see smaller goals as well. Common everyday tasks that the board wants to make sure you've thought about may include: how will you open a bank account? Who will provide transportation immediately upon leaving prison? In other words, who's going to take you home? How much money or how much support will you have immediately upon leaving prison? And how much will you need? For example, will you need the first and last month's rent? Where will you get clothes? How will you manage your money? Do you need to get a driver's license? In this section, you want to leave the best final impression on the board. Your closing should have 4 parts. First, acknowledge your crime and how you have grown. Second, address what you feel was the most harmful fact for you that was brought up in the hearing. Take responsibility for it and state briefly how you have moved on from it. Then state the most positive thing brought up in that hearing. So this could look like: thank you for pointing out what you did for that last drug-related infraction I had, because it gave me the opportunity to let you know what I took the substance abuse class, and now I know the dangers of substance and will never do that again. Third, restate your goals. Make sure you speak with emotion in this part. Lastly, thank the commissioner for his or her time, and maybe ask them to let you know if there are other things besides what you have already told them or what you're already doing that they would like to see in the future. This last step is very important. Even if you feel they were unfair or you think it went poorly, even if the hearing did go poorly, you will soon be given another chance. The parole board will remember if you had a bad attitude at the end of the meeting, and that will negatively impact all of your future hearings. In the alternative, if you have a poor meeting, but you keep a positive attitude and you thank them, they will likely remember that going forward as well. Next, here are some interview strategies that will help you best advocate for yourself. The first thing is that appearances do matter. The first thing the parole board will notice is how you look. So make sure your hair is done nicely, if you have facial hair, it's well kept, and that you brush your teeth. Second, always be confident. It's important to have eye contact, have good posture, and that your voice be loud enough for them to hear and to understand you. Lean in when the board members ask questions to indicate that you are listening to them. Talk slowly enough for the board to understand you, and do your best to remain calm, even when you are nervous. And always remember your who, what, when, where, and your why. Third, be polite, be respectful. Say thank you, yes ma'am, or yes sir, no ma'am, or no sir, and always smile. Don't get rattled by any tough questions. If you don't understand a question, just ask them to repeat it. Fourth, practice, and when you think you're done, practice one more time. Practice with someone you can trust, like a friend, your case manager, or your therapist, and always get feedback. It is helpful to practice your answers out loud. It will help you be less nervous and do a better job when you're having the actual hearing. Finally, remember to have a positive attitude. Sometimes a board member may seem like they're asking harsh questions, but it's important to stay positive. Never criticize anyone or anything. Take responsibility and never push the blame on someone else. Always maintain control of the situation by simply staying calm and showing that you have confidence in yourself. After you completed the interview, evaluate what you may have heard. Make notes after your hearing and ask yourself, what did the parole board respond positively to? What did the parole board respond negatively to? How did they respond to your incarceration record, educational history, work history, and your community support? Was there anything they asked that you did not feel prepared to answer? Write down your thoughts and reflections before you forget, because they will help you next time to be even better prepared. If you have family members, friends, or advocates, remember that only up to 5 of them are permitted to meet with a parole board member to advocate for you to receive parole.
We now look at what to do after your parole hearing. First, let's talk about what to do while you wait. Waiting can be a frustrating process and could take a couple months. Although you may be anxious to get your results, stay focused and stay disciplined. It is important that you do not even get a minor disciplinary infraction during this time. There are 3 possible outcomes of your parole hearing: getting denied, getting a MAP contract, or getting granted. Following the steps in this guide should point you in the right direction to help you put your best foot forward in your hearing. However, if you are denied parole, it is important to use it as an opportunity to grow. The parole board wants to make sure you are prepared to re-enter society and have the proper support in place. Look at the reasons they give you for what they want you to do to be successful at your next hearing. Being denied can be a big disappointment. Denial can sometimes lead to feelings of isolation or hopelessness. Therefore, it is important to reach out to family members, friends, religious leaders, therapists, or anyone else you may trust. The important thing is to not give up. Do not let denial stop you from doing your very best. Use this disappointing result as an opportunity to show that you have truly reformed, know how to handle adverse situations, and are self-disciplined enough to face obstacles and hard times with maturity. Show the parole board that despite their denial, you are ready to take on life outside. While results are never guaranteed, your ability to stay focused in the face of adversity can be a strong indicator next time around. One option for the board is to give you a MAP, which stands for the Mutual Agreement Parole Program. MAP is an agreement between you, the Department of Public Safety, and the Post-Release Supervision and Parole Board, in which you follow and complete their requested programs, and in return, you earn your release. The goal of MAP is to find and prepare eligible candidates for successful release by requiring structured activities, scheduled progression in custody levels, participation in community-based programs, and established parole dates. To be eligible for a MAP, you must be within 3 years of parole and meet one of the following 4 criteria. 1. Be in medium or minimum custody. 2. Not be subject to a detainer or pending court action that could result in further confinement. 3. Be infraction-free for 90 days prior to being recommended. Or 4. If sentenced under the Fair Sentencing Act, you are otherwise eligible for a 270-day parole or community service parole. To get a MAP, you should show the board why a MAP will benefit you and show your desire to participate in MAP-related programs such as further educational opportunities, learning skills, personal growth programs, and modifying specific behavior. If granted a MAP, the important thing to remember is not to get any infractions while under your MAP. Even a small infraction will likely cause you to lose your MAP. Now let's talk about what to do if parole is granted. First of all, congratulations. Hopefully the steps provided in this guide were a help for you to achieve this milestone. As relieving as it may be to meet this goal, it is important to remember that the hard work is only beginning. While life on the inside presented its own obstacles, life on the outside now presents its unique challenges. In order to make sure you stay on top of things, it is important to remember a few things. 1. Make sure you fully understand the conditions of your parole. You have worked so hard to get to this point. Don't put it in jeopardy now because you did not understand what the conditions were. Number 2. Make sure you follow the conditions. Nothing is more important now than keeping your nose clean and following the conditions set in place by the parole board. Number 3. Stay in contact with your parole officer. Keep a good relationship with them and maintain open communication. Your parole officer has influence to make your time on parole more lenient or more strict depending upon your willingness to cooperate. Number 4. Surround yourself with people who have your best interest. It is crucially important to stay away from bad influences and those who can get you in trouble or encourage you to violate conditions of your parole. No relationship is worth jeopardizing your freedom and ability to accomplish your future goals. Do not lose sight of your goals. Parole, however frustrating it may be, offers more freedom and growth potential than remaining incarcerated. Although it can sometimes be inconvenient, following all your parole conditions and requests of your parole officer are most important for you to make parole as painless as possible. Remember what life was like on the inside, and remember that parole is temporary. Stay focused on achieving your goals and making your supporters proud. You've got this.
To conclude, we encourage you to focus on the things you can control instead of the things you cannot. The biggest thing you can control is your attitude. Have a positive attitude while developing your reentry plan. Be confident in the changes you have made and the classes you have taken. A positive attitude is noticeable to the parole board and reflects favorably on you as a productive person. As we said before, the reentry plan is important. Spend a lot of time on your reentry plan so that you are in the best position before you even step foot in front of the parole board. Your case manager, family, or friends can help you find reentry support so that you are well prepared to live in your community successfully. You can also control your personal achievements. Do your best to take advantage of any educational classes, work programs, or other offered opportunities while incarcerated. This especially includes mental health and substance abuse counseling. More and more prisons are offering mental health and substance use programs. Take the opportunity to work with a therapist at your prison. They can be a big help to you and can help you be the person you need to be successful outside of prison. Start your journey of becoming a productive member of society before you are even released. Talk to your case manager about what classes may be required for parole in your case. For example, if you committed any kind of sex offense, you will need to participate in the SOAR program before you will be granted parole. If your criminal or disciplinary record includes any substance involvement, you should take NA or AA classes and be able to talk to the parole board about what those classes have taught you. You can't control the past, previous hardships, or what other people say. You can control how you respond to the things you can't control by remaining calm and staying confident and humble. Acknowledge what happened and the impact of what happened. Then discuss why and how you are different now than you were when you committed the crime. Show the parole board how you have grown as a person. This can include maturing, following a specific belief system, and working with others. Don't let the things you can't control get you down. During your parole journey, don't forget to take a deep breath. Remember all the things we've talked about and do your very best. You've got this. Good luck.
As someone who once sat in your shoes, I can't stress how important your reentry will be, but most importantly, preparing for your reentry. And this is a step in the right direction of that preparation. I look forward to seeing you on the other side.